Yeah, we are in business.
Is it my turn now?
Right, everybody, let's give a good welcome to our bulletin organiser, Dorothy Sayers.
I don't know how many of you have actually been able to get onto the computer and seen my last little speech that I've given in Salford. Hands up who has. Two. People there. Right. To recapture, if you don't mind, to the people who actually haven't seen this, I think it would be very helpful if we could actually make the electorate aware of who they are going to vote for when they put their cross at the next elections. Not just these little local elections, but especially next year's elections as well, because I really think it starts here already, because the sooner we start and try and get our views across on a one-to-one basis, the better we will stand next year when we have the general elections as well as the local ones. In Bolton, I've got a new member, and she's got a little tiny business, and while she's tending the people what she's doing, she doesn't shut up about the BMP, and people are asking questions, and she has come up with an absolutely brilliant idea, which is great, and it can start from a one-to-one relationship, and then people go out and talk amongst themselves, and it ended up like this with Tina. And we have now got, well, we have actually had one, what we call a myth-busting meeting about the British National Party, where several members of her family and friends have come together in her house, and me and Eddie went over, Eddie from Salford, and we went over, and people just fire questions about what we believe in, why we are doing what we are doing, and all this lot. And with the answers they received, everybody was so happy that they've gone out and they were talking to their friends and their families and all this. And we now are in the process of organizing another myth-busting meeting with different people. They will go out and talk amongst themselves, because I'm sure those people will be as happy as the other ones, and it will so continue. And I think if we're open to that kind of idea, it might work, because people have got these perceived ideas about us, and it's completely exploding those ideas into, hang on a minute, these people, they're actually saying what I feel. Because how many people have you heard moaning on buses, in shops, or wherever, oh, these flipping immigrants, you know, and haven't we got enough? So they're all actually thinking the same as we do, but they haven't got the guts to come forward because they're scared. And we need to get that scared, that frightenedness, that anxiety, we need to get that away from them. And then they will pluck up their courage, because they got somebody there who can take the lead and follow us. So maybe that's an idea. But when I prepared the speech last time, Andy was actually writing a letter to the Home Secretary. He actually wrote a letter to the Queen, and we got a letter back saying the Queen isn't sort of to do with these things, this is a matter for the Home Secretary. Who wrote back, or rather Leon Haider wrote back, "Thank you for your letter to the Home Secretary, Theresa May, which has been passed to the Department for communities and local governments as for a reply. We are still waiting. You express serious concerns about Muslim communities, and I'm glad that you have brought these to our attention. In the UK, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience and religion. For Muslims, as with other faiths, religion can be an integral part of self-identity, but it is important that each of us considers our responsibilities as well as our rights. Mutual concern and respect for our fellow citizens is essential if we want our neighbourhoods to be places where everyone can play their part and feel that they belong. The government is committed to making Britain a more integrated society where we celebrate what we have in common, where people are not held back by social barriers or discrimination and intolerance, and where everyone plays their part. We are therefore working to strengthen our approach to integration and cohesion, including how we can best tackle all forms of extremism, hatred and intolerance. Now then, this was written on the 6th of January 2011, so that's that far. But isn't it funny when you then look back and you do a little bit of research, and in 2009, 2 years before that, Mr. Cameron comes out with, there is nothing British about the BNP. We need to fight extremism. Is that quote is actually directed at the BNP, which I think is outrageous, because we are here for the British people. That's all we are here for. And we are here to defend our right. We want to defend our right to have the box in Hyde Park, what Hyde Park is famous for everybody to stand on and voice their views. But this thing of what they've said in the letter, where everyone can play their part and feel that they belong, and everybody has their responsibilities as well as rights, and mutual concern and respect to our fellow citizens is essential, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't apply anymore today, because as we know, in London there is no-go zones where the patrols actually stop us lot walking past their mosques and their area because of the way we are dressed, the way we look. We might have a can in our hand, a drink or something. There was, we are just normal people. There was an accident where, I don't know if it was a staged accident or something, but the camera happened to be in place. I've seen it on the computer myself. And there was Mr. Mohammed, or whatever his name is. See, that accident has happened because that driver was drinking. This is what alcohol does to all these people, and this is why we have to stop it and all this lot. And it's come to pass in research or whatever comments later on, that accident had absolutely nothing to do at all with alcohol, you see. But Mr. Mohammed and friends turn it round and literally brainwash their people into thinking this is it. Another very serious danger today, and it refers to that letter as well, is these called free schools, where they don't have to conform to the British curriculum to educate pupils and all this. One school has already closed down because of the parents weren't very happy with the teaching the white people had received, or the white pupils, and reported the school, and it was investigated, and yes, it was actually up to no good at all, so they shut the school down. So what happens if these called free schools don't allow any white children in, which is duly to happen? I mean, what parent in the right mind wants to send their only white child into an Islamist free school? It beggars belief, because that is where people are being told that we are kufars, we are not even worth the Hindu status, who drink house pee, apparently. This is all on the video on YouTube if you research it and all this. And because we eat pork, we are actually below the Hindus. And if we can get that point across to the people we talk to, I think half the battle will be won. Because we need to reassure that the pride of Britain still is in our hearts, and it needs to come back out again. It really does. And we need to walk the streets with our heads up high and not sort of like cower in the corner somewhere and be quiet when we see stuff happening. And what I've also learned recently is in Germany, they're building so many mosques, and in Bolton alone there is 26 new mosques that have been planned and approved as well. So they're going to be built on top of the ones that we have already got in Bolton. Far too many for that town, I think. The problem is that what is happening in those mosques? We know who goes in, but what is the teaching in those mosques? And Andy, just in the last couple of days, on the Bolton Patriot, has put on, and there's pictures of what they do to children, beheadings, disembowelments, and it's all graphic and it's all there. And this is your religion of peace, which we all know about. But the public does not comprehend that, and that is what we have to get across to them. And it starts on a one-to-one basis. The further one, what we have to make the public aware of is the little comments Mr. Cameron comes out with. Because he says, it's not enough. This is at the Conservative Muslim Forum on the 1st of December 2009. And he says, it's not enough, as I said many times, for a party like the Conservatives to open the door and say, come on in, if all you see is a sea of Christian faces. Well, I'm sorry, Christian faces are not just white faces, they're colored faces as well. But that's by the by. What he wants is more Muslims in more important positions in government, in business, in everywhere. I don't know if that is a good idea, to be quite honest, because it will just reaffirm that we can't go into certain areas, and they will get support from the police as well, because he wants these Muslims everywhere, like I've said in the speech before. The other one is where he comes out in 22nd of October last year. Mr. Cameron says during the festival of Eid, which he invited various Muslims down, and he said, we want to say what a fantastic contribution Muslims make to our country. Of Of course we want to celebrate everything that the Muslim community here in Britain is and does. So, like I said before, so Mr. Cameron is all in favour of having no-go areas. We soon have those areas, not just in London, we have them everywhere. There is several like towns in Germany, Berlin and Essen for instance, they have got the same problem. And how, I maintain this thought, how can you have a country with two sets of laws in it? How can we have the British law and how can we have the Sharia law at the same time? It doesn't work. It's not right. If we wanted to go to Saudi Arabia, for instance, we wouldn't be allowed in or anywhere in those areas, in Egypt and all that. We wouldn't be allowed to go unless we have at least £50,000 collateral behind us. We wouldn't be allowed to go unless we knew the language. We would not be allowed to own any land. We would not be allowed to join their national health system, whatever it is. We'd have to be private. You know, so how come that we open the doors just to get votes, basically, and overrun this country to the degree that is so full that soon people will fall off the edges into the sea because there's nowhere else to go for them, literally. It's not right. And this is what we need to put across to the normal people who want to put a cross on the form. In fact, people need to understand that they need to vote. I mean, I've seen a quote today. If Nazism and fascism are extreme ideologies represented by nationalists, chauvinists, xenophobics, racist, religious, fundamentalists, and or reactionary views, and the view of most extreme forms include oppression and genocide against groups of people on the basis of their alleged inferiority, then what is Islam? Because that is precisely what they do. There recently was the march in various towns, if not all towns really, and it celebrated Muhammad's birthday. Now, you had thousands of people. If you set the camera at the bottom of the street, you could see no pavements, you could see no road, all you saw was faces from where the camera's view started to right the end and beyond. And that was in every city. I think in Bolton we had something like 7,000 Muslims alone. Now I don't know if we actually already got 7, I wouldn't quite, yeah, I think I would imagine we got about 7,000 Muslims in Bolton, I couldn't quite believe it. But they were just the men, not the women, just the men. So how many, you know, women are there on top of the men that you see in those pictures? And it's not to celebrate Muhammad's birthday, that's the excuse. What they're actually showing us is, this is how big we have become in your country. The reason why we have no-go areas is simply because when they have a mosque and on their land, that is a piece of Islamic ground. And then they occupy houses all around the area, around the mosque. That too becomes Islamic land. That is nothing of Britain anymore, in their eyes. And that's the gospel truth. And that's how they take over. And then they aggravate each other because we know there is different sets of Muslims of different tribes and stuff like that where they come from. And they call their mosques prerogative names to provoke one another. And that's how the grumblings come about. And this unrest that's happening all over that world over there, it's going to start here as well. And it's going to start quarreling against us first, and then the others, and then there is nothing left. They're going to start on each other as well. So once this is lost, it's just going to be a total wave of unrest all over the world. And isn't it funny that Egypt actually declared the Muslim Brotherhood an illegal organization because they are classed as terrorists over there? They have been turfed out of their country, and guess where they are? In London, over a kebab shop, and that is now their operation office now. And when they're all going to get turfed out of their country, out of Egypt, guess who will welcome them with open arms? Mr. Cameron himself, probably. You know. And this is what we need to get across to the people who want to put a cross on the election forms. Seriously. Now then, the other one I've come across as well is at an interfaith concert on the 10th of November last year, actually. And, okay, it's in Germany, right? But it's going to happen here. And I would like to find out what is the reaction going to be if this ever happens over here. What has happened? There is actually a church in the town of Speyer, and it's the memorial church of the Reformation of the Evangelical Church. And it was actually made or built as a monument in memory of Martin Luther, who had like a big spiritual revolution stuff going on in Germany. And this particular church is actually the very, very first church that was built in Martin Luther's memory. And that is the significance of this particular happening. And what has happened is they were having an interfaith concert. And at the concert, they got an imam coming out, and he was standing on the podium, or on the altar, I should say, and he was calling for prayer. And this woman, and she's called Heidi Mund, she heard about this, and she drove an hour and a half to be at this church meeting. And she didn't know what she was going to do. She knew she had to do something. And basically, she shouted out, and she says, I want to destroy this curse in this church. It's not right that this should happen. And it's all on YouTube, actually, that one. And I have to say, I take my hat off to this lady. I really do. Because she said, how can you have Allah in a Christian church? You cannot have two gods in the church. And she's absolutely right, because with the law of this country, it's the same thing. How can you have a Western law with Sharia law? It doesn't work. It just doesn't work at all. And she stood there, and in the end, she says, I can do no other. I can stand here and do no other. And that was actually Martin Luther's words in 1521. And all I can say is good on her, because she made a stand. And that is what we need to do. We need to be courageous, like this Heidi Mond. And we need to really grab the bull by the horn and get in there. And if it takes a cup of tea and an hour or two of inviting people round and that. I mean, when I got ready on Sunday to the conference, normally I take my dog out on a Sunday first thing in the morning, and I have my doggy clothes on, which are not very smart, not like this. So, because I was getting ready, and I said to Dennis at the time, I'll be ready for 8 o'clock. And I realized that morning, oh gosh, no, I forgot about my friend who's 86, and I'm supposed to deliver her papers on a Sunday morning because she can't walk to the shop and all this lot. So I just got myself ready, dashed down to get the papers in my local shop, and they said, because they normally see me in my doggy clothes, and they went, wow, don't you look smart? Where are you off to? And I said, well, actually, I said, I'm Dorothy Sayers, I belong to the British National Party, I'm going to a conference. And her eyes went, and she went, good for you. And up to that point, I had no idea of her political views, this woman. So I just said, look, I said, if you want, I said, you can put a cross next to my name at the next election because I will be standing as candidate. Oh, good. We need somebody like you in this area, was the reply. So I said to her, I said, listen, and I don't normally give my phone number out, but I did give to this lady because I've seen her over a few years now. I know what she's like. And I said, look, here's my phone number. I said, if you have any questions, or you and your family or friends have any questions, please ring me up, let me know, we'll come and explain to you, and we see what happens. But it's simply that. You've got to grab an opportunity as soon as it arises. I mean, even when I walk my dog, whatever activity you do, eventually comes the point where the conversation turns to politics. And that's when you've got to grab the bull by the horn, and you've got to explain yourself and really go to town and try and make people understand. And they will go initially, but they will go home and something will take over and they will have a question. It's either that or they'll never talk to you again, which has happened to me as well. You know, but that's their loss. You know. The other one is when we were in Wythenshawe the other day and we were dishing all the leaflets out. I had one woman, and I've had this before actually on another occasion as well. You should be ashamed of yourself. But that woman, unfortunately, did not give me a chance to explain myself because she dashed off, as is the usual case. So here I am, and if this goes on YouTube, I would just like to say, I'm not actually ashamed of standing up and be counted on the counts of that Charlene Downs was chopped up in a kebab shop after she was murdered and served as supper in the kebab to our lot who came in for their supper after they had to drink. Because we unknowingly were forced to be cannibals. That's wrong. That is very, very wrong. And how the Crown prosecution made a mess of things, I do not know to this day. I really don't know. But these guys should be held to ransom, and, you know, they should be sorted out. And likewise, anybody else who's doing these things. I mean, how is it, should I be ashamed? Because I want to stand up for the children in this country who are constantly being raped, who are still being enticed into drugs and alcohol, and then handed round to 100 men by these so-called paedophile gangs, who have been arrested, 9 of them in Rochdale, another so many of them in Peterborough recently. They're all over the place. It's happening in every single town. I asked myself, should I be ashamed of the fact that I'm wondering, when I'm walking through, I know what is an Asian part of my ward, and I hear screams. And I'm thinking, is that screams of temper? Because it's obviously screams of a child. Is this child being abused behind closed doors? Are they doing even the unthinkable behind that door? You know, does the child have to undergo female circumcision there? Is that why she's screaming? And these thoughts go through your head, you know, because you don't often hear children scream like that. Should I be ashamed of that? To make Joe public aware of that's going on in our country? Because it is my country too, even though I've got an accent. I lived here longer than what I ever have in Germany. You know, and we have to take this on board, and we have to take it in our... And no, I'm not ashamed, because I'm a very proud member to be here in the British National Party, trying to wake the British lion up, and I will stand in any election that is going in the future for as long as I
Can I just mention a couple of things? First one is this lady in this German church, and when she was outraged at what was going on in there, she stood up and she gave the rest of the church, the rest of the congregation, the opportunity to assist her in what she was doing.
Yeah.
Not one of them.
Not one, no. And in fact, she was thrown out of the church
She
as
was,
well.
yeah.
She was the only one thrown out. And the person that should have been thrown out was the imam.
Yeah.
He should have been the one that was thrown
But
out.
I'm saying that the people just aren't bothered. They're just sitting there, sitting back and let someone... Yes, they had the opportunity there to back her. She was shouting, you know, I've seen the video, so she was shouting it was all wrong and what have you. She was breaking the curse. The people, the Christians in that church should have backed them.
Yeah.
They just left it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've recently been told that apparently I'm inciting hatred. No, I'm not inciting hatred at all. I'm telling the facts as it's being reported, as it's being in the news, as it's being on the internet, and I challenge everybody who wants to call me names and do that. Research on the Muslim websites and see what they're writing about us, because what they are writing about us deserves to be in court, deserves to be shown to the police, deserves to be shown in the human courts over in Brussels as well, even if they choose to listen, because they are threatening to kill us, they are threatening to behead us, they are threatening to do all sorts of things to us quite openly, and they say Great Britain is not great anymore. And just you wait till we take over. So that is the aim. We know that is the aim. We all know it's the aim. It's convincing the people out there that it's their aim to do that to our country, not their country. You know, and let's face it, they're not happy in their own country because, so they come over here. They're still not happy over here because it's not their own country, so they're trying to make it their own country, and they won't be happy then either because they weren't happy in the country where they came over from. What's the sense in all this? You know? Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
The other point I was going to raise was you're comparing Sharia law and common law. If I married 4 women, what would happen to me?
You'll be in jail.
Hang on, we've got Sharia law. They're allowed to marry 4 women.
Yeah, but hang on. They're not allowed to marry 4 women over here.
No, they
They are taking the
That's
women,
the
they want
technicality
to
of life.
marry abroad.
That's the technicality of
Yeah,
life.
that's the technique. But if you became a Muslim, you could do that then.
That's to become a Muslim.
Yeah.
All women
But
understood with this one.
having said that, and I said this in my last speech as well, there is a few people, white people, that have actually converted over. And in America, there is one guy, and he killed his mother because he didn't agree on the fact that, she left him for another man because she wasn't happy with him and something like that it was. And it's all in that speech on what I had before. And they are, I think, those kind of people are actually more dangerous than the original Muslims themselves, because they are actually taking it word for word what they are being told to do. And it's so dangerous, so dangerous. We really need to get a grip, and we really, really need to get out there and do something.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I never go on looked at it, it's only 80% of Muslims in this country on benefits.
Yeah.
And they've just been granted that they can claim benefits for the 4 wives.
Yeah.
So they can claim 4 coach loans. You know what I mean? You go to their country, if you do what they did, if you went to their country legally, they put you in jail for 12
But
months.
that's in this
In
country.
here, they give you a house. They give you a house.
Not only that, but one Muslim was driving through the streets doing 60 in a 30-mile-per-hour zone, who was stopped by the police apparently, and when he was told that he was rushing from wife number 1 to wife number 2, he was let off. And also, I know this is from the horse's mouth, and this is years and years ago, and this is from my friend who's 86, right? When she used to go to work, you just had the immigrants coming over. And whenever she was late, because she had to divorce and she had to bring up her children, 3 children single-handedly, she wasn't getting a penny of benefits or nothing at all. No help, no nothing. There was no childcare. And if she was late, management came down to her like a ton of bricks. But the foreign women who came in and they were late, nothing was being said. So one break time, my friend took heart in hand and went over and says, listen, why is it that I am getting told off when I'm coming late and you getting nothing? Oh, it's all right. My husband works at night, and I wait till he comes home, then we make baby, then I come to work. And that's why she never got told off. And that's from the horse's mouth. And I'll leave it at that.
Right, that was just saying then about the tell the police